Hey, how's it going? Here we are one more week to continue with our session 1, part 2 as promised, right? Remember we started this session last week and now we're going to continue with it and end it. So let's now continue with our PowerPoint presentation in just to have a look at present continuous. Let's go. And as you can see, we continue here in the Fifth Avenue in New York, and we are going to continue with our session 1 and have a look at present continuous and also the difference between present continuous and present simple. And at the end, you will have a look at the some practice that I'm going to give you in order to correct later on next week, right? So let's go. Alright, so let's continue. This time we are going to continue with the verb to be. It's very easy. The only thing you have to do with the verb to be is to know it for sure, right? I mean, you have to memorize it and know how to use it. I am, you are, he, she is, it is, etc. No? Well, this is really very, very easy. Everybody who has been to school, knows the verb to be by heart, right? So, example of usage of the verb to be. Are your parents young? Is your sister married? Answer to the first question. Yes, my parents are young. Yes, my sister's married. You can say my sister is or my sister's contracted, right? Remember that whenever we deal with colloquial English, we always prefer contractions because you speak faster, quicker, right? Right, so yes, my sister's married. You can say yes, my sister is married. In this case, we're using is because sister is she is a third person singular, and in the verb to be, you use is with he, she, and it, right? And in this case, parents are is used with plurals in the verb to be, right? No, my parents aren't young. My sister isn't married. You can say are not young, is not married, but I repeat, I insist, we prefer to use contractions, right? Good, so let's continue. Well, this is just to remind you, to reinforce the idea of the verb to be with the different forms. And now we're going to work with adverbs of frequency. Adverbs of frequency, as its name clearly shows, tells you the number of times you repeat something, and normally using present simple shows that the action, the verbal action, is repeated frequently present, no? For this reason, it is convenient to reinforce they love, they like. I mean, when I say they, I'm talking about English speaking people. They love reinforcing the action of routine, the action of the verb, right? For this reason, you usually use this type of adverbs of frequency: always, often, usually, never, etc. Well, this is very easy, right? So there are some more, but I understand all of you know. And the problem is, where are we going to use them? Where can we use them? There are different options. Some of them have different positions in the sentence. Some other ones only a couple of positions, and some other ones only one position. But it's for sure that all of them can go before the verb. So I recommend you to use them all before the verb. And the very good advantage is that it doesn't matter if the sentence is affirmative sentence, interrogative sentence, or negative sentence, they always go in the same place just before the verb, right? Let's see some examples. For example, I do not, or don't, always, don't, usually, don't, often shop in a supermarket. Or you can also say I never shop in a supermarket, right? Mom does not, or doesn't, always, doesn't, often, doesn't, usually, etc. shop here, right? Mom often or frequently shops in a supermarket, right? Well, in this case, you can see that we are using the adverb of frequency always, often before the verb in negative sentences, and also in affirmative sentences they go in the same place just before the verb, right? Some more examples. Adverbs of frequency with the verb to be. The verb to be is always an exception to almost anything in English, right? For this reason, when you use the verb to be, the adverbs of frequency go, as you can see in brackets, after the verb. Let's see some examples. Are your parents often at home? In this case, as you can see, we're using often after the verb. First the verb, are your parents, and then the adverb of frequency, right? If it's a positive answer, yes, my parents or they are often at home, right? So as you can see, we are using in this case often, the adverb of frequency, after the verb to be. Of course, I can say often, I can say usually, I can say never, I can say sometimes, etc. It doesn't matter. It's always after the verb. One other thing, as you can see, I am asking a question here with the verb to be, and I am not using do. Why not? Because the verb to be is the only one in English that can make negatives or ask questions directly, just placing the verb before and the subject later, right? So you can say your parents are often at home, or reverse it and use first are and then your parents. Are your parents at home? Your parents are at home, right? So it's very easy. No, my parents or they are not often at home. So as you can see, to make it negative, I am using not directly with the verb to be right here. Are not or aren't. And often, in this case, the adverb of frequency is going just after the verb, right? Well, this is very easy. I think it's clear. And the only thing you have to do is just to practice later, right? Well, let's continue. Well, just as a reminder, high or no frequency when we are using adverbs of frequency is just to show high frequency, middle frequency, or no frequency at all. And here in this image you have a table with the degrees of frequency of the different adverbs, right? For you to just to help you and to make it easier for you. The present continuous. When do we use the present continuous? We use the present continuous to talk about something that is happening right now, at this moment, right? For example, is the general manager, you can say now, or it's not necessary, because if you say is the general manager talking on the phone, now you know that you mean now, right? But anyway, if you want to reinforce the idea and to ensure that everybody's going to understand that it's now, all right, you want to highlight it, then you can use now before the verb, the same as with the adverbs of frequency we saw before, right? Is the general manager now talking? Or you can also say, is the general manager talking on the phone now? Right? So two possible positions, before the verb or at the end of the sentence. Good. So let's continue. The answer, no, she is not or isn't talking on the phone now, or she isn't now talking, right? Yes, she is now talking on the phone, or yes, she is talking on the phone now, right? Well, this is very simple, no problem. You can practice with different verbs just to ensure you have no problem with it. I don't understand what you're saying. When don't you understand? Now, because you are using what you're saying, right? So I don't understand what you're saying right now. So I'm talking about this moment. The question is, all right, Pablo, and then if it is at this moment, why don't you say I am not understanding and you say I don't understand? Good question. You cannot say I am not understanding because there are some verbs in English, the verbs of state, that don't have a continuous tense. You cannot use it. You cannot use them in continuous tenses. What is a state verb? A state verb is a verb that clearly shows no action. When you say understand, you don't show any specific action. You don't make any body movements, any bodily movements that shows that you are doing something, right? The same as when you say no, as when you say want, as when you say like, right? You don't do anything special to show an action with these verbs. It's not the same as if you say walk, hear, talk, speak. It's not the same, right? Those are action verbs. Consequently, when the verb is not an action verb, you cannot use the continuous tense. Sorry, you cannot use the continuous tense. What can you use? The simple tense. So in this case, I don't understand what you're saying. Or if you want, you can also say I can't understand what you're saying, right? You know, we are talking about these moments because the second verb is in present continuous, what you're saying, no? You can also say, I don't understand you at these moments. For example, if you say at these moments, everybody knows that you mean now, right now. Well, as ever, this is just a reminder of how we use present continuous, current and temporary actions. When I say temporary actions, I mean that is at this moment, but could also be, as we are going to see now later on, could also be in during a short period of time, right? Well, one more example here in the image. My husband's traveling to New York, or my aunt is currently living there, right? Both show that the actions are taking place right at this moment. Present continuous versus present simple. When we use present simple and when do we use present continuous? Remember that we use present simple to express routines or habits, and we use present continuous to talk about current or temporary actions, right? So, examples. When I travel to Rome, I stay at the Caravaggio Hotel. What does that mean? That means that whenever I travel, I travel frequently. That means that I travel frequently to Rome, no? And when I travel to Rome, I always stay at the Caravaggio Hotel. So high frequency, and it's because high frequency, and it also shows routine. That is my routine. My routine is going to Rome, and my routine is staying at the Caravaggio Hotel, right? For this reason, we use, or that's a habit also, we use present simple. Now, what happens in the other example? I am in Rome and I am staying at the Caravaggio Hotel. I am in Rome and my routine is to stay at the Caravaggio Hotel. But where am I now at this moment? At this moment, I am at the Caravaggio Hotel. So I am staying at the Caravaggio Hotel, right? Present continuous because that is what I'm doing now. But what I typically do always as a routine is present simple, right? So let's see one more example to make it clearer for you. I live in Madrid, but this month I'm living in Amsterdam, right? What happens here? Normally I live in Madrid, but this month, a short period of time, as a difference from what I usually do in this. Why I usually do this, right? This is my routine, but in this short period of time, I am doing something different. What? I am living in Amsterdam for 1 month, and then what happens after that month? I return to Madrid, and I continue living in Madrid because I live in Madrid, right? So, routine, I live in Madrid. Current action, what is happening at a specific period of time? I'm living in Amsterdam, right? And now here we have an image where you can see a couple of examples to make a difference between present simple and present continuous, right? Usually Polly goes to school, that's a routine, so present simple. And now she's watching TV, that's current action, and as a consequence of that, we use present continuous, right? All right, and this is our section of practice. In this section, I advise you, I would like you to think about the typical things you do in your normal lives, right? And imagine what you would normally say at different moments in your normal life. But what you would normally say using the forms we have studied here, right? The infinitive, the imperative, and present simple and present continuous, right? So examples of things that you need to say, that you usually say in your normal lives in infinitive, imperative, present simple, and present continuous, right? Because that is the way to put into practice what we have studied, and also to put into practice in a realistic way. Because this time you are thinking about what you really need to say in English to communicate with some other people, and that is the best thing that may happen to you, because you are learning English, you are practicing English, you are improving your English to put it into practice in your daily life, in your normal life, right? So it could be your professional life, could be your familiar life, could be your leisure, could be your friends, etc., right? So things that you would normally have to say using these forms in all these different environments, right? Well, I am going to give you some examples applying this philosophy, this view, right? About things that maybe, for example, I or a normal person will have to say in his or her normal life. But this time, as you can see, it's going to be in an exercise form. So I'm going to give you an exercise and you will have to do it, and we will correct it next time, right? So in this case, you can read the instructions, fill in the gaps with the verbs in brackets, choose from infinitive, imperative, or present. So you have to check the words in brackets, and then you have to fill the gap with the correct form of the verbs in brackets, depending on the context of the sentence, right? And in the image you can see reminders, some more examples about simple present and present continuous. No? And finally, let me recommend you the usage of these two websites, just to practice with exercises in English in this. For example, in the first web, agendaweb.org, there are lots of different exercises. And finally, let me recommend you a very good dictionary online where you can check all types of meanings depending on the word. And this is all for today. If you like this channel, if you have enjoyed, if you have learned, sign up, right? Sign up, because it's always very convenient to be in the channel, to belong to the channel, because you can share your experiences, your knowledge, your doubts, etc. with the rest of the family in this channel. And that's all. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next week. Bye bye. See you.